Welcome back to Saron Things. After a long and unexpected hiatus, she's back and better than ever. I'll be honest, I did feel a little stifled by my previous format, and I want to be clear that we will always talk pop culture here. That will always be at the heart of the content. But I must be honest, pop culture and politics, that's my life. This typically isn't the foot I lead with, but I've spent the entirety of my professional career, almost a decade, working with progressive Democratic candidates, trying to get them elected up and down the ballot. This is what I spend my days thinking about. And for the longest time, the pop culture content was an escape. I'm a serious person with some unserious interests. And like most women, I'm sick of being told that because we enjoy pop culture, we're silly, unserious, and disposable. Men can memorize baseball stats and quote The Wire for hours, and somehow that's culture. But women dissecting housewives, that's frivolous? Fuck that. And like I said, for a long time, pop culture felt like my escape hatch, a place to go when the world was too ugly or too loud. But here's the truth. There is no real escape. The politics still find you. To sit behind this mic and pretend otherwise would be inauthentic. So I'm not shying away from politics anymore. Sometimes my feelings won't fit into a neat box. Sometimes they'll contradict, but I'd rather give you the truth, messy and alive, rather than play pretend. And as we enter this new era of Saron Things, I want to give you a rundown of my ideology and how I became this person. I've spent the majority of my career helping elect Democrats, like I said. But my backbone was built way earlier. I was 5 voting for Bill Clinton in a mock election at my DC elementary school. That's how deep this runs. Then I got dropped into evangelical schools. I was surrounded by kids being brainwashed into cruelty. I was often the lone Democrat. In science class, we debated whether gay marriage was unchristian, and my stance was simple. What person would choose to be gay if people like you are out here delighting in making their lives hell? Silence, of course. No one could answer that question. And that's when I realized, in like the 6th grade, I would never outsource my conscience to small men with big egos and sadistic interpretations of God. And that's why I don't want to tiptoe anymore, to be true to that girl, not for conservative snowflakes who want their alternate reality catered to, not for the leftist hall monitors with their endless purity tests. I will fail your tests every time, gladly, because my job is not to keep your feelings intact, it's to keep democracy intact. And if that makes me a stone cold bitch, then so be it. So let me make my priorities clear, okay? No fluff, no utopian daydreams. 1, preserve free and fair elections. 2, protect the rights and safety of marginalized communities. 3, save Medicare and Social Security. 4, gerrymander the fuck out of every blue state because the other side already torched the rule book and I'm done playing nice. All right? Now, for you never Kamala people, listen closely. Seriously. If you're still out there frothing, protesting her book tour, or whining online like the useless bitch babies you are, this is not for you. You're dead weight. But if you're ready to repent, admit you screwed up, and fight the real enemy, fine, welcome, grab a chair. But don't get comfortable because you are on probation. Do I want decrepit, bought and paid for politicians running the party forever? Absolutely not. Primary them, organize, build PACs, run killers who actually want to serve. Take their seats, but until then, while they're still holding on to the gavel, we beat Republicans at their own rigged game. We save Medicare, we protect voting rights. That means being ruthless when I have to be, pragmatic when it counts, and unflinching all of the time. And if that makes me the villain in your story, good. At least you finally understand the plot. This episode is going to be largely political. Next week, we will get back to a healthy mix of both pop culture and politics. But I feel the need to go in, and I shall. We're going to dive right on in by discussing the right's reaction to Charlie Kirk's execution. So the right is out here doxing people for not mourning Charlie Kirk hard enough, publishing names and addresses, harassing folks because someone dared to quote him critically or didn't hit the right note of grief. And they're calling Democrats evil for this. Okay, so let's pull up some examples. Wrong video. But actually not wrong at all, because when I first saw that on January 6th, I felt physically ill, nauseous. I despise Mike Pence. I always have. But in that moment, I was terrified for him because they weren't kidding. They weren't performing. They built gallows outside the Capitol. They were ready to hang the vice president of the United States. And for the first time, I saw exactly what they meant by Make America Great Again. It means drag this country back to the ugliest chapters of its past. It means public lynchings. It means fear and blood as a tool of power. That is their America. That's their project. And now these same people, these mobs, these defenders, they're apologists, want to lecture us about morality. They want to call Democrats evil because we don't cry on cue over Charlie Kirk. Spare me, okay? These people stormed the Capitol, smeared shit on the walls, beat cops with their own flagpoles, and tried to stop the peaceful transfer of power. And now they want to pretend like they're the guardians of decency. They call themselves patriots while chanting for lynchings of their own vice president. They wrap themselves in the Constitution while they piss on it. And the worst part? It's not just the rioters. It's the whole ecosystem of cowards and frauds who excuse them. Members of Congress calling them political prisoners, MAGA influencers, branding them as martyrs. Every one of them is complicit. They don't just excuse treason. They celebrate it. They sell merch about it. They build a movement on top of it, okay? So no, I don't want to hear another fucking word about Democrats being evil for not mourning Charlie Kirk. Not from the crowd that tried to lynch Mike Pence in broad daylight. Not from the people who wave blue Lives Matters flags while beating cops. You don't get to weaponize grief while you glorify gallows. You don't get to lecture anyone about decency while you cheer for sedition. And if calling that out makes me a bitch in your story, fine. At least I'm telling the truth, and you can choke on it. Anywho, let's rewind a little bit. Back to, say, November, right after the election, I was devastated. I, along with many people, said that they could not negotiate the choice many Americans made to pick a man who has absolutely no interest in preserving the dignity of this country and its people over any competent human, let alone one as competent as Kamala Harris. I was so confused as to how they didn't see him for what he was, a liar, a con man, a criminal. Many people cut off family and friends based on their blind support for Trump, and only when his policies started harming Trump voters themselves that they suddenly had a bad taste in their mouth. And then and only then did they start questioning his motives, which is a tough pill to swallow for the Americans who voted in their best interests, in the best interest of our farmers, families, children, our economy, small businesses, in the best interest of our democracy. And yet they did not, hoping the harm would befall someone else. And that, to me, someone who cares about the well-being of all my fellow hardworking, tax-paying Americans, who is sometimes preoccupied with justice, was resolved to write them off. But as time goes on, especially in these past few weeks, particularly since Charlie Kirk's passing, I've observed a few things. I don't think Charlie Kirk was a good person. I think he purposefully conflates topics and muddied waters to justify his bigotry. His debates were not in good faith, and he almost certainly did far more harm than good in his lifetime. And no additional context changes that. That said, did he deserve to die for being a shitty person? No. Frankly, when I first heard about it, I thought it was a Trump-type situation where his ear was grazed. Never in my wildest imagination did I think that he was executed in such a horrifying manner. I don't want to get bogged down on who Charlie Kirk was. We do not have to agree that he was a good person. We just have to agree that he shouldn't have died. After people finished their tantrums about the left's admittedly callous response to his passing, something that felt like a moment of like, finally, we can feel morally superior and cancel them for being morally bankrupt. The right has rarely had the opportunity to do that, so it made sense to me why they were behaving in such a rabid manner. It was a release of guilt, an opportunity to shift some of the weight of what they've denied but knew all along, that they are never on the right side of history when it comes to humanity. But like I said, there was a shift, specifically after Charlie Kirk's memorial. There was rumblings of recognition that something was very off. I think to even the most conservative of Republicans, a political rally dressed up as a memorial left them feeling for lack of a better word, icky, particularly the gleeful division stoked by Stephen Miller and Trump, emphasizing their hatred of the left people dazed and frankly exhausted. And it became very clear to me, Americans have division fatigue. And there are some on the right who will cling to MAGA until the bitter end, because that is their whole identity, fear and hate and false vibrato. But there are also some folks who are looking for an off-ramp. I think people who are looking around saying, why are we fighting one another? Who are realizing they have been lied to about so much. Are there racists on the right? Sure. Are all of them? No. And call me naive, but I think truly there's more good than bad to be found. And I'm not afraid to admit that there's also plenty of racism on the left. It's just dressed up in more palatable language. And as a liberal myself, I have never in my life been more aware of my party's shortcomings as I am right now. And it has never been more clear that mainstream media is failing us every single day. They are complicit in the brainwashing of the American people. And I just want us all to have access to the truth so that we can make decisions based on the well-being of the people and the country we love, rather than out of fear that our neighbors are somehow out to get us. I think we can all agree on the $20 billion that Trump sent to Argentina. That was a slap in the face to all Americans. It's robbery. We're literally being robbed so that Trump can float another wannabe dictator who tanked his own economy, much like DJT is currently doing. The government has shut down because the Republicans are trying to avoid passing a continued resolution that would, in some places, particularly in red states, triple insurance premiums. And they refuse to negotiate with Democrats. All the while, they're telling their base that Dems won't negotiate because they want illegal immigrants to receive health benefits from the federal government. Who wants that? If you believe that someone without a social security number can receive Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, SNAP benefits, etc., you want to be lied to, and you can't be helped, and I won't coddle you and try to ease you into understanding. No, that would be a waste of my time. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene has acknowledged that the Dems are holding out so that American premiums don't skyrocket. If she, with all of her intellectual deficiencies, can figure it out, so can you. Okay. On to Taylor Swift. The Life of a Showgirl came out, and I've never been more embarrassed by the left. This was confirmation that we are the caricatures that conservatives make us out to be. I watched that conversation go from how shallow and lyrically rudimentary the album was. And don't get me wrong, I know that all of her albums are trash initially before everyone falls in love. But the intensity of this, it felt different. Then I saw the conversation evolve to not only was this just a shitty album, it was a shitty, racist album. And not just that it's a shitty, racist album, but it's a shitty, racist album that confirms that she's a MAGA-loving trad wife. All this over their interpretation of her abstract metaphors in her songs. There is a huge campaign to convince us that her use of the words onyx and opalite convey your life sucked when you were with a black woman, and now you're with a white, perfect fairy angel princess. As if this is the first time anyone has used the word onyx to describe night or darkness. And Taylor herself says that she's always loved opal, and she used opalite because it's man-made, and it makes her feel that even happiness can be man-made. We can create our own happiness, is what she said. I could do this with line after line that people were up in arms about, but I'll spare you. Because it is an absolute choice to interpret these metaphors as racist. But there are no ethical billionaires. She's not at the top of my priority list when it comes to problematic billionaires, not to mention the bulk of her network are her masters. I'm not going to go out of my way to attack the woman who crashed the voter registration website in 2018 after she urged her fans to register and explained why she was voting blue. Something she has reaffirmed election after election. And suddenly, because she's in love happy and getting married and talking about having kids, she's obviously MAGA. And we now have to find ways to interpret her lyrics as racist. Shut up. You are an unserious person and you do not own the left. Leftists in their miserable purity test are an albatross around the neck of democracy. Liberals are just right-wingers with better vocabulary, you scream. You don't get to decide. You are not the arbiter of progressivism, and frankly, you're an obstacle to progress. You're trying to hand Taylor Swift over to the Republicans because you don't understand her metaphors and because she had the audacity to sing about having children with her future husband who was also white. How does that help your cause? and not alienate anyone who does not want their life held hostage by what it is that leftists are outraged about this week. I don't trust your ability to triage, to be pragmatic, to understand nuance. And at this point, I don't trust your ability to interpret art and not create monsters where there aren't any. Why should I? Why should anyone? Credibility is important in this world that we are currently living in, and you do not have any. You want me to co-sign that Taylor Swift is a racist based on your loose interpretations of her abstract metaphors? I, in good conscience, cannot do that. Someone in my comments tried to say that there was a one-to-one comparison with a metaphor that Beyonce used in one of her songs, and my jaw hit the floor. The English major in me screamed. What do you mean, a one-to-one comparison with art? Let alone a metaphor. That is simply not a thing. And if you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that I am not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. Backlash doesn't immediately trigger the urge to double down in me. It's kind of a superpower, all right? So I really did inspect this from every angle. And the more I tried to twist and contort myself to understand where people were coming from, it just became so clear that these bigoted interpretations were a choice and not at all an inevitability. And I'm not going to pretend to see evil where there is none. Do I think that Taylor Swift is preoccupied with the fact that Travis's ex was black? No, but I think everyone else is. And I find that embarrassing. Also, I'm going to follow Kendrick Lamar's lead on this one. When he says Taylor Swift is anti-black, I'll believe it. When he's out, I'm out. Someone commented, how can she call herself English teacher and not talk about the current crisis in the American education system and how undervalued teachers are? You want her to write a song about the literacy crisis? Bitch, you are the literacy crisis. And to be clear, conservatives don't own families. To give them that is a big loss on our part. We don't want to be the party that is anti-family because it's not true, one. And two, that's what they want. Why are you trying to hand them wins? Conservatives are being lied to boldly and blatantly everywhere they turn. It's actually low-key abusive psychological warfare. Pundits on Fox News will look at them in the eye and tell them that illegal immigrants are getting Social Security with no Social Security number. Liberals are also lied to by our media, but our lies are lies of omission, which can be just as damaging and make us complicit to things that we do not understand. They can't lie to us as blatantly as conservative mainstream media lies to conservatives, because we will fact check them. And if the facts do not align, we will embarrass them publicly. It just doesn't work if your viewers are educated. And you got to admit, we've cornered the market on that one. And that's also something to think about for anyone who leans right. Why are these right-wing politicians and pundits and influencers denouncing higher education, or really any education at all, while sending their own children to college? They would scoff at the suggestion that their kids wouldn't attend university because how else would they compete in this cold, hard world? Why are your children any different? But that's a conversation for another time. My point being, I will never lie to you. I don't fit neatly into anyone's box, and I think that there are a lot of people on both sides of the aisle that can relate. And if you can relate, then this podcast is for you. If you've been told that you're not left or right enough, welcome to Saron Things. You're not going to agree with everything I say, but I will never lie to you. Plus, we'll find a way to laugh through the insanity, I promise. And that is all for today's Saron Things. It's a brief episode. I wanted to focus on politics and hit you hard with that stuff so that you guys can make an informed decision if you want to keep listening or not. Next week, we'll be back to our hour-long episode, split probably 50-50 between politics and pop culture. We'll talk housewives and everything else that's going on. Hollywood, entertainment news, and celebrity nonsense. It'll be fun. I'm excited for this new era of Saron Things. I think only good can come from me being more authentic. That's how I built my platform in the first place, and there's no reason to stray from that now. So buckle up, buttercups, and I'll see you next week. Toodaloo.